Welcome to Spread the Facts, tips for older adults and their families to stay home and stay healthy. This is the third in a series of Teacher TVW Connects sessions we're presenting in partnership with the Washington State COVID-19 Joint Information Center and AARP. I'm David Johnson, TVW's Director of Education, and today we're connecting with Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson, Shannon Smith, the Chief of the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division, and AARP fraud expert Doug Shadel. They will be answering questions submitted by older adults around the topic of coronavirus scams and related fraud. And a note to viewers, this week we received many questions related to medical issues that we won't get a chance to answer this time, but we plan to address them in a future show. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. AG Ferguson, I'd like to start with you. Why are we seeing so many scams and fraud around the coronavirus right now, specifically aimed at older adults?
Yeah, and first, thanks so much for hosting this segment, which is so important. It's a challenging time for everybody, as we all know. And right now, we always see, as you'll hear more from Shannon Smith from my consumer protection team, we always see during a time of a natural disaster or anything along those lines, we always see an increase in individuals trying to scam hardworking Washingtonians out of their money. And this is no different. In fact, this is magnified, if anything, given how impactful this pandemic is on everybody and their way of life and the economy and their personal lives. So yes, we have seen a dramatic increase in complaints to our office related to this. And that's why my team's working so hard, along with other organizations as well, to really address the tremendous need that we're seeing right now. In terms of seniors, it's hard to know exactly why that is. Others will have some thoughts, but what I can say is that in general, when it comes to consumer protection issues, my office receives a disproportionate number of complaints from senior citizens in Washington State. That may be for a whole host of reasons. My mother is about to turn 92. I'm not sure she wants me saying that right now on TV, but she's about to turn 92. Look, she's a retired school teacher. Technology, she wasn't raised with that. When she was having a professional life, there weren't computers around in the way that there are now. And so there may be, in a certain sense, a lack of familiarity in the way that, hey, my 12-year-old twins are growing up with computers and are extremely familiar. So for a whole host of reasons, there may be reasons why seniors may be especially hard hit right now as they look for, hey, help with their health, help with buying products that are not being price gouged, or trying to avoid an eviction from their home.
Well, thank you. Shannon, can you give us an overview of the types of scams that your office is seeing?
Well, we're seeing all kinds of scams. And as Attorney General Ferguson said, when you have natural disasters like this, the scammers tend to come out in force. And they do something that we all do, and that is they read the news as well. So when there's anything in the news related to the coronavirus, they will jump on that and create whatever kind of marketing or whatever kind of scam that they think will grab people's attention and will get them to either purchase a product or provide information that they shouldn't provide. And so these kinds of scams tend to match up with the news, and they match up with people's needs for personal protection products, whether they're selling those products at exorbitant prices, or they're marketing those products, but they don't have them and they don't tend to deliver them. They'll just take your money and they won't deliver the product, trying to capitalize on the consumer's need or perceived need for those products. We're seeing a lot of complaints about so-called cures for the virus or vaccines or other products that will kill the virus or eliminate it from your air or eliminate it from surfaces, when those claims just aren't true. We're also seeing a lot of situations where people are trying to raise money, whether they're trying to raise money to help people who have lost their jobs because of the coronavirus, or raise money to provide personal protective equipment for healthcare providers. I mean, they literally will stop at no headline that they read and try to create a scam to get you to bite. And we're just really seeing everything.
Thank you. So we, a number of the things you mentioned, we'll get to. We have specific questions about some of those issues. We had viewers pre-record questions for us, so we'll address those later in the show. Doug, from what I understand, your office has received complaints about a number of robocalls, and you have recordings of some of these robocalls. So I'd like to just see if we can play some of the robocalls and then get your response. We'll do one at a time. We'll get your response, and then Bob and Shannon, if you want to weigh in after each of the robocalls, that would be great. We'll just go through these one at a time. So let's go ahead and play the first robocall.
The coronavirus has caused the U.S. to declare national emergency. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act has made coronavirus testing more accessible immediately. If you want to receive a free testing kit delivered overnight to your home, press 1.
All right, thank you. Doug, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, well, these calls are coming in by the hundreds of thousands, and the recordings come from our partnership with Nomo Robo, which is a call blocking company. We'll just point out on that first one, they are claiming, Shannon and AG Ferguson were just talking about how these scams are tied to the news. Nothing more newsworthy than the coronavirus right now. And the Families First Corona Response Act was passed, in this case, on March 18th. And on March 19th, these calls started hitting people's phones all across the country. So it shows you just how quickly they can adapt to an emerging news event. And this is just another example of it. So create anxiety or play on the anxiety that already exists. A.G. Ferguson has heard us talk about, and he himself has talked about this, that con artists play on emotion and anxiety. Well, if that's your goal, is to get people into a heightened emotional state, your job's already done for you right now, because everyone is in a heightened emotional state, and they're just playing on that.
Bob or Shannon, would you like to weigh on that first call?
Yeah, one thing I just will add to what Doug said, which I agree with, is everybody's susceptible to this. I know my wife received a text message that she showed me. This is a few weeks ago, and it was right when the news was coming out that the federal government may be providing a stimulus check to folks. That was literally in the news that day. The headlines were, hey, folks might be getting a check for $1,000 or $2,000. And we were just getting breakfast with the kids going, and she said, check out this text. And it literally was a text. Hey, click here to get your $1,000 or $1,200, right? And hey, if my wife's getting that text message, I can assure you, folks all across the state are getting the phone calls you just heard from Doug, getting those text messages, those emails. People capitalize on that news, so you think there is something legitimate connected to it. But we really caution folks, look, just use your due diligence and make sure you reach out to someone before you turn over your hard-earned money or click on one of those links.
Now, the robocall mentions testing being available immediately. Should that raise any red flags?
That should raise.
That should definitely.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Bob.
Okay, so I was yeah.
That should definitely.
Flags. Oh, our apologies. Sorry, guys. So Shannon, you go ahead. My apologies.
Thank you, Bob. Sorry about that. That should raise some red flags because that testing capacity is just not available. And again, that's another scam picking up on the possibility that testing may be available for limited people in the population, trying to get you to take the bait. And that is just a false advertisement.
All right, thank you. Let's go on to the next robocall.
Dear customer, due to coronavirus outbreak, we deliver a wide range of sanitizers, hand wash, toilet papers, and face masks at your doorstep to safeguard you and your family from coronavirus. No need to visit stores. Get delivery in 24 hours. To order, press 1. For more knowledge and safety tips about coronavirus, press 2.
All right, let's go back to Doug.
Yeah, well, this just preys on fear, right? Fear of running out of these things. We've heard about that. Fear of going to the store. So they're going to provide you with something that we're afraid we're running out of. They're going to prevent you from having to go to a store where it's perceived that you're dangerous. And it just preys on fear. Again, that emotion that causes you to not think logically about how else you might get these things, causes you to react automatically. And you press 1 and they're going to ask you for a credit card number, and who knows what happens after that. The only thing I wanted to add, when you were talking about older folks, Bob's right that this can happen to anybody, but I think what causes acute anxiety in our group, and I'm in that group now that I'm 62, is that, as the governor has said, the 90% of the people who have, for whom this virus has been fatal, have been people over the age of 60. So if you get these calls and they're going to help you, protect you against this, it's not that everyone doesn't have anxiety, but we have particular levels of anxiety because of that, I think.
All right, thank you. Bob or Shannon, would you like to weigh in on that one?
I think that Doug summed it up pretty well. And I think what's important for your viewers in general, just to reemphasize this important point, is that scammers are successful when they get you in a heightened emotional state. And that's why they can be so successful right now, because let's face it, everybody is in a state like that. There's a stress of different kind for everybody, whether you're a senior citizen, whether you have a health condition, whether you're out of a job, whether you wonder how you're going to pay the rent. You got your kids at home, they're not in school, that's a stress. So everybody, literally everybody in the state is under a heightened stress situation right now. And that's why we all have to be extra vigilant when we see these kind of communications coming in.
Shannon, I noticed this call specifically mentioned face masks and hand sanitizers, whereas the previous call mentioned testing. You want to weigh in on that aspect of it?
I would echo Doug's comment on that, and that is everybody is hearing about the perceived shortages or the empty shelves when it comes to things like toilet paper and masks and hand sanitizer, and those are the things that people are talking about needing right now. And so it really does prey on that sense of shortage and that you need that product for your health. And then, as Doug mentioned, and then you don't even have to leave your home to get that. That could be delivered to you. So again, they're picking up on other elements of fear and anxiety that are either in the news or information that people are sharing with one another, trying to capitalize that and take advantage of that. Another thing to notice about this particular call is that it's a recorded call and the language isn't quite right about it. So when you hear a message, whether it's recorded or it's a live operator, and it doesn't sound quite right. It doesn't sound like you're talking to somebody who is knowledgeable about the situation. Be very suspicious of that call.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Let's go on to the third robocall.
Hello, this is a call from the Social Security Administration. During these difficult times of the coronavirus, we regret to inform you that we have got an order to suspend your socials immediately within 24 hours due to suspicious and fraudulent activities found on your socials. We are contacting you as this case is critical and needs your urgent attention. To get more information about this case, please call immediately on our department number.
All right, thank you. Doug?
Right. Well, prior to the coronavirus outbreak, as Shannon and Bob are fully aware, we have already been flooded this year with the Social Security scam on robodials. And it really does, again, with our folks who are on, imagine you're living on Social Security and somebody calls you up and says your check is going to be cut off if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And that's just, again, a fear play. Now you throw the coronavirus on top of it, and it's kind of a double whammy. And so it gets people to pick up the phone and respond using those twin pillars of fear.
AG, or Bob and Shannon, anything to add about that?
Sure. So one thing I noticed from that message is, to follow up on Doug's comment, words were used in that message like, this is critical. It's urgent you respond. You must respond immediately. They're putting those really specific words in place to make you stressed out, to feel like you're in a heightened state of emotion. If you see those kind of red flags, don't respond to those calls. Call somebody you trust before you take any action.
Okay, great. All right, let's go to Shannon. Anything to add for that robocall?
Yes, I have a couple of things to add about that particular message. One, like Doug said, that's kind of an old message that's been reconstituted for this COVID emergency. It's sort of funny, yesterday afternoon, I deleted 3 voicemail messages from my work iPhone that were identical to this scam message, except this new message just has the preface of the coronavirus on it. So they're really just sort of re-engineering the same scam to play it again during the coronavirus. The other thing I noticed about that call that's particularly deceptive is that with folks expecting their stimulus checks from the CARE Act anytime that's associated with their Social Security number, it could cause people to feel very alarmed at the possibility of maybe not getting their stimulus check or having their stimulus check misdirected. And I know we're going to be talking about those checks a little bit later in the program, but that's another reason why this scam could be so effective, is it could impact people's fears about whether or not they're going to get that much needed stimulus money.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Yeah, we do have a question coming up later specifically about that, but let's go ahead and go to the fourth robocall.
Greetings, this is a courtesy call from 3MS Safety Program to inform you that due to the coronavirus pandemic, the government have authorized our laboratories to offer you the safety and medical kit, which at this moment are sold out in the market. We are giving you the priority to have access to the supplies needed before the state's lockdown. Please contact us at...
All right, let's go back to Doug.
Well, there you have some of the same elements. There's a scarcity of testing kits. There's an imminent lockdown, and this probably appeared sometime, or actually it doesn't matter when it appears because everybody's going in and out of lockdowns. And again, that's going to make it even harder to get any of these supplies. Press 1 to respond. And it just preys on the anxiety we all feel. You start to see this pattern of preying on anxiety and tying it to a news event. No bigger news event. I mean, the Nomo Robo folks said that in the last week of March, just in 1 week, they blocked 550,000 Corona scam calls. And that's just one company with this scam. And you multiply that by 100-fold, and that's the level of volume that we're talking about here.
Bob or Shannon?
Well, I would jump in on that one and say that, again, it's preying on anxiety. It's preying on a sense of scarcity of something that you may really need in order to stay healthy. The other thing that folks need to watch out about is that when you hear that hospitals and healthcare providers are having a hard time getting this equipment, you should be suspicious when you get a message saying, oh, we have lots of this stuff and we have it just for you and we'll send it to you. That just doesn't make a lot of sense with other things that are happening. So when you hear a message like that, be very skeptical because it's not true and it's a scam.
All right, thank you. We've had a number of questions come in about legitimacy of things they're hearing. So let's bring up the first question, which relates to coronavirus products. Go ahead and play the question from Kathy.
Hi, my name's Kathy Penkin, and I live in Bellevue, Washington. What I want to know is I've seen a lot of websites advertising coronavirus-related products. How do I know if they're legitimate?
All right, let's go to Bob. How can someone that has an email or something about a website, how can they tell if it's legitimate or not?
You bet. So one thing I would start with is that certain products we know are not legitimate. In other words, a cure, for example, for the virus, we know is not on the shelves, is not available. So if you see someone advertising something that seems too good to be true, use common sense when it comes to that. My guess is Shannon and Doug can add to other products as well on that.
Well, and Bob is absolutely right. If they're selling something that we know is false, it's not a legitimate retailer. And for some of the products that we're seeing that are marketed online, it could be really confusing for customers to know what is a legitimate source and what isn't. My advice is to check with those retailers that you yourself purchase from. Look on the websites where you generally make purchases go to the grocery stores or the drugstores that are open, that you usually make purchases, and make your purchases there. And I would encourage people to be very careful when they're shopping on marketplace websites like Amazon or OfferUp or eBay, where people are selling any kinds of products in any kind of condition. Some may be legitimate products, some may be counterfeit products, some may just be scam websites that don't have any products. They just want to get your money, and you'll never get what it is that you ordered. So my advice is to shop at known and trusted sites, and don't be tempted by a sense of scarcity to go to an unknown seller or a suspicious seller to try to make a purchase.
All right, thank you. So the question arises, how do folks get kind of clean and clear information they can trust about the coronavirus? And we have a question related to this. Let's go ahead and play the next question.
Hi, my name's Debbie Ryan. I live in Spokane, Washington. My question is, there's so many resources out there for information on coronavirus. How do I know which ones to go to and trust? Thank you.
All right, let's go back to Bob.
Sure. So thanks for that question, Debbie. A couple initial thoughts. Others may want to add to it. But to follow up on Shannon's point about shopping at places you trust and you know, the same would hold true for information. Look, the state of Washington, for example, as a government, has a wealth of information, more than you could possibly want about the coronavirus. And that information you can trust, right? These are experts who are putting that on the state's webpage, and you can trust that. Your local government, your local health officials, I would trust those people, because in this digital world, so much information, to your point, Debbie, is coming in. Go to those sources you trust and you know are reliable. And I would start with your trusted health folks at the federal, state, and local levels.
Shannon or Doug, anything to add about that?
Spot on.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm on with both comments about trusted source. I myself had one website I would direct people to is, in addition to the State Department of Health or your local health, is the cdc.org website for sort of factual information, medical information that can be relied upon. And on this question of going to reliable platforms, you know, I've noticed on Facebook, because I was looking for masks earlier, I still haven't found any, by the way. The number of ads that I get now on Facebook from companies I've never heard of that are trying to sell me masks. And frankly, I'm tempted to click on there because I can't find any. And that's what scarcity does. Even someone like me, who's supposed to be the most cynical person in the world about advertising, is tempted by these things. And the other general tip I would offer is just, if you have a need for something, you initiate the contact. Not only go to, you know, websites that you've gone to before, platforms you trust, but so much of this is things coming at us. And if you turn it around and you initiate the contact, you're going to be a lot safer.
Thanks. Shannon, did you want to add something to that?
No, I don't have anything to add. Both Bob and Doug gave really good advice.
Great, thank you. So let's go to let's go to another question. We have a question from Lee.
Hello, my name is Lee Wiseman. I live in Sammamish, Washington. I've heard of house flippers making unsolicited offers to buy the homes of people who are struggling right now. My question is that safe? Another question, is that even legal? Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go to your responses to that, I want to bring in another guest who can talk about this issue. So let's bring in Ruby Holland. There we go.
Hello.
Hello, Ruby.
Hi.
Ruby, so you're an advocate for homeowners in Seattle's Central District. Have you, from what I understand, you are hearing similar concerns to the question we just played?
I happened to get an investor that targeted me, wanted to buy my home, and it immediately I got red flags from it because he was very aggressive, and he said he wanted to buy 100 homes in my area.
And are you hearing similar things from other homeowners in the Central District?
Well, we've been upzoned, so we're being targeted by developers. And since we can have backyard cottages now, a lot of investors have been targeting us too. So it's been ongoing.
Gotcha. Let's go to Bob. Any response to these offers of house flipping during this time?
Sure. So first, and I'll have Shannon expand on this, but first, if any of your viewers have concerns on this issue or other issues we're talking about, they should contact our office. They should write to my consumer protection team. The information's all there on our website. On this issue specifically, a lot will turn on what is the specific conduct? What are the promises made by the person trying to purchase your home? Are they being deceptive in the way they promote their products? Are they being unfair? Those are the key words a court will look at. Is this an unfair practice or a deceptive practice? So the words will matter. What form a letter takes that ends up in your mailbox, for example, will make a big difference on whether it moves from something that might be unscrupulous to something that is actually illegal. And Shannon may have some thoughts to add to that as well.
Bob is absolutely right. What's really important with these kinds of scams is to have people who receive those offers, whether they receive them through the mail or they receive them by somebody visiting their home, to write to our office and tell us about it. If you have the flyer or the postcard, send that in with your complaint so we could have that and look at it. If somebody came to your home, tell us who they're representing and what it was that they told you. Making offers to purchase homes is not in and of itself illegal. That happens in the marketplace. It's not unlawful to offer to buy somebody's home. Where it becomes a problem and where it becomes illegal is if they're using tactics that are unfair and deceptive in trying to get you to sell your home. Some of those tactics are making false claims about the value of your home, making false claims about the state of the real estate market by saying that home prices are about to get reduced, so you should sell now, or saying, oh, we could get you the very best price for your house right now. And the sense of urgency that is often accompanies these ads could be very unscrupulous, and that could get to the level of being unfair if people are feeling pressured or put into pressure to sell their home in order to take advantage of a market opportunity or in order to avoid something bad happening to them financially. So what's really important for us is to get those complaints and get as much information and copies of the offer or the flyer or the postcard that you have, because that will be really helpful for us in deciding whether or not that is an unlawful practice.
Thank you. Doug, I understand that your office has received a number of these concerns as well.
We've definitely heard about them, and you heard from the person who raised it is actually one of our volunteers. So, but I want to just reiterate that if you have concerns about this, you should file a complaint with the AG's office or call the AG's office just to check it out. They can talk to you about whether it's something they should file a formal complaint about.
Great, thank you. Ruby, I understand you have some more to add about this subject.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to tell seniors that there is really no need for any of us to be fearful and fall prey to the unsavory investors during this uncertain time. Foreclosures are not allowed, so we don't have to worry about that. And then after the coronavirus scare, if we need additional income, there are things we could do. We could apply for the senior property tax exemption. We could sell half of our land and redevelop or remodel our homes. We can get a basement or garage apartment for income or for a loved one that may be priced out. Or we could rent rooms or do Airbnb for additional income. So, with a home, we do have options. and there is no need to let these investors scare us.
All right, thank you. Anyone, anything to add from any of our other guests on the line to that before we let Ruby go?
I just want to add one thing, if I could, and that is the home flipping is one type of scam, but during these economic troubled times, we also see equity skimming scams where people will come and say, you know, we'll put a loan on your house and you won't have to pay for 5 years or whatever, and it could result in foreclosure. So you have to be a little bit careful about not just people coming and offering to buy your house, but people who come up with some complicated arrangement whereby they can get you cash or a reverse mortgage. With people who are equity rich and cash poor right now, you got to be really careful about that.
And David, if I can add just one thing to that, which is, as a follow-up, is even if someone does not fall victim to something that they feel is a scam, if they can still notify our office, that helps Shannon and my team help others who may not fall victim to it. So if you get a communication that looks, hey, this isn't right, hey, still forward that to my office. Even if you don't follow up with it yourself, it still helps my team to follow up with that entity and perhaps help somebody else down the road who might have fallen victim to it.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you for joining us, Ruby. Let's go on to another question. We have a little bit of a change of pace questions from Sunny.
Sunny Lucia, Seattle. People are clustering more lately, I notice. Is there a polite way to say, hey, give me 6 feet?
Clustering, yes. So, Doug, would you like to start with that question?
I'd like to give that to the Attorney General.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure this is my area of expertise.
The Chief Law Enforcement Officer in the state of Washington.
Exactly. That said, yeah, no legal advice on this, but maybe. Look, first, on a serious note, I appreciate the question. It is a strange time. It is a different time. I mean, that's completely legitimate. My feeling in general with life is just be direct with people and, you know, be polite about it, of course, but simply to say, hey, you know, if you're in the grocery store, for example, and you're in line and someone's within those 6 feet, I don't think there's anything wrong. In fact, I think it's appropriate to say, hey, do you mind giving me a little bit of space here? So look, you want to make sure you're protecting your health, and folks should frankly understand that. And as long, of course, you are polite about how you do it, I think that's the main thing. But really, the message needs to be getting through to folks, and some folks need that reminder, and you can do a lot of good by reminding folks that they need to keep the appropriate social distancing.
Thank you. Shannon, anything to add about that?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Great. So, Bob, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the See It, Snap It, Send It outreach effort.
Yeah, See It, Snap It, Send It relates to our efforts to address price gouging right now in our state, and it's going on all across the country. And so what we're seeing, of course, and you've read about in the newspapers, is somebody, for example, selling a small container of hand sanitizer that normally sells for a few bucks and raising the price to $30 or $40, taking a single roll of toilet paper and selling it for an outrageous amount of money. Those masks, right, that you heard Doug trying to talk about trying to find, marking those up 200, 300, 400%. So See It, Snap It, Send It is, if you see that going on online or you see it in a store, snap a picture of it and send it to my team so Shannon and my team can follow up. So far, David, we've already sent out more than a dozen cease and desist letters to businesses, and those all flow from Washingtonians who have contacted our office. All of your viewers are our eyes and ears out there, and we really appreciate folks writing to our team so we can get to those folks, those businesses that are raising those prices, and make sure the prices get down to a more appropriate level.
All right, thank you. Shannon, at this time, you know, I know I've seen a lot of kind of emails and efforts to get me to donate, you know, just efforts to send in money. How do folks know if that's legitimate, something they should be giving money to?
I think the best way to give money at any time, and particularly in a time of disaster, is to give to a trusted organization that you have donated to in the past, or donate to your church, a place where you can trust that they will provide your donated funds where those funds are most needed. And I would always be skeptical, and I urge people to be skeptical when they get requests from any organization that they've never heard of, an organization that they know they've never donated to before, to ask for a donation for any kind of help or purpose during this corona emergency. If you have singled out an organization already, feel comfortable donating to that organization if it's something you feel like you can afford to do. All of these organizations have great mission work that they're working on, whether they are trying to help homeless people, trying to make sure the food banks are well stocked, trying to provide medical care to people in need. There are legitimate organizations, many of which you've already heard of. You've probably donated to them before. Stick with those organizations if you want to make donations to help, but be very skeptical of organizations that you've never heard about that are flooding your phone line or flooding your email box, asking you to make donations, because very likely those kinds of organizations are not legitimate, and they're either pocketing the money or they're diverting it to some other purpose that you don't intend.
All right, thank you. Let's go on to our next question.
This is Pat Johnson from Seattle, Washington. We're looking forward to getting our stimulus check, and I've received a call and an email about programs that will help us get our check faster. Should I respond to those?
All right, yeah, lots of questions about stimulus money. Let's go to Bob for this one.
Sure, I'll give an initial answer. I suspect Shannon and Doug may have additional information. So first, I would say I just would be cautious to reinforce that same message of anything related to that stimulus check, which so many folks need and are depending on, that is suggesting somehow you get it quicker if you go through some other route. I'd just be very cautious about anything along those lines. And Shannon may have information on whether we've received complaints along those lines. One more additional thing I just will say is that, in other states, and under the federal government's guidelines, actually, debt collectors can garnish literally those stimulus checks. Those checks, of course, are meant to be used for someone to pay the rent, to put food on the table for their kids. In Washington state, however, importantly, Governor Inslee acted in a way that prevented debt collectors from garnishing that stimulus check, from grabbing that stimulus check for most consumer debt, credit card debt, for example, or medical debt. So that's important for folks to know. If they feel some kind of garnishment is being attempted or someone is threatening to garnish, to take their stimulus check for a debt, they should immediately contact my office and let Shannon and our team go to work to help them out.
Great. Let's go to Shannon.
I would add one thing to what Bob said, and that is if an entity or an organization wants you to pay money to get their help, to get your stimulus check, don't do it. Don't pay anybody anything to get your stimulus check. That's yours. You will be getting the check, or it will be deposited in your bank account. There's nothing anybody else can do to facilitate that. So certainly don't buy into that, and definitely don't give them any of your money.
Thank you. Doug, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I do have one thing to add. I agree with both of those comments. If you go to IRS.gov, if you're worried about the stimulus check, you haven't gotten it yet, or you got one of these calls, and by the way, there's lots of robodialers reflecting exactly what that question was. Hey, we've got, we can get you $10,000 in stimulus if you press 1 right now. If you go to IRS.gov, they have set up a tool called Get My Payment. And you just, IRS.gov, you go to them, and again, you're initiating the contact. You're not responding to a telemarketer. And they can tell you all the things you need, what the status of your payment is, what information you have to provide if there isn't enough, and what to do to get it faster. I would rely only on them, and be careful of someone calling you and saying they're from the IRS, because as we know, that's another common spoofing tactic. IRS.gov, and you can get some information about the stimulus.
All right, thank you. Let's go on to another question, pre-recorded question.
Thank you for taking our question. I'm Robert DeWald. My wife and I recently moved into Emerald Heights, a life care facility in Redmond. We would like to know what is being done to communicate directly with residents like ours to prevent scammers from taking advantage of our very vulnerable population. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Doug, back to Doug for this to start with. Can you describe your efforts to reach out to folks in facilities like he described?
Yeah, we have a speakers bureau that up until the onset of the coronavirus was doing 200 presentations a year, volunteers going out into facilities like that to warn them about fraud. Since the coronavirus and has caused the shutdown of that speakers bureau, we're now doing virtual presentations into those communities where our trained fraud fighter experts, and the Attorney General knows who these folks are because he's helped us train them, are going in and customizing the message now to talk about the things we're talking about in this program, coronavirus and that kind of thing. We also have a program nationwide called the Fraud Watch Network, and we've got a helpline that if you go to our website, aarp.org, you can call that number if you've been victimized or if you have a concern about it. It's really, it's staffed by volunteers who do peer counseling for people who are worried about fraud.
All right, thank you. Bob.
Not too much to add. Doug's really the expert, of course, and AARP really leads in terms of communications. But one thing I'll add is AARP has worked with the governor's office and my office to have call-in sessions where folks can literally dial in and listen to experts from public health, the governor's office, and my office on all sorts of issues related to the coronavirus. So look for those opportunities as well. I'll do my plug for AARP. I mean, really, they have fantastic programs. We had thousands of people, as I recall, Doug, join that call we did not too long ago.
Yeah.
For folks to get information, not just on the scams, which is very important, but also what's the state of play when it comes to the pandemic more generally and big decisions being made by the state of Washington. So really encourage folks to get connected with AARP and with Doug's organization. They're doing great work.
Thank you. Shannon, anything to add to that?
Just really quickly, I'm really glad that Doug and his group are out there providing these virtual trainings for folks. Our office does in-person outreach and education and goes to many senior living facilities to provide outreach and education. Obviously, we're not doing that now with the Stay Home, Stay Healthy proclamation, but that is a service that we offer. And once folks are able to get back in the field again, we would certainly be happy to do a presentation at any organization that requests one.
Thank you. Shannon, we've received emails about folks who are getting offers about investing in companies that are working on vaccines and cures. Any red flags there?
Yes, there are red flags there. These kinds of investment scams, they follow the headlines just like all of the other scams. And it's just a ploy to get people to think that there is a unique situation created by the coronavirus emergency that creates investment opportunities. And like many of these other coronavirus scam endeavors, this one is something that's probably too good to be true. There are companies out there that are doing research and working on a vaccine. A lot of that work is done by universities as well. If you've heard of a company before and you want to invest, maybe that's something to think about. If it's a legitimate company and you're really looking to make investments. But when you get an offer by phone or you get an offer by email about investing in a company that's creating a cure or a vaccine, it's likely just another scammer reading the headlines, trying to get your money.
Thank you. So we've covered a lot of information, but I'm just wondering if you all have some just general tips for older adults to avoid getting taken advantage of during the coronavirus outbreak. Let's go to Bob.
Sure. So I think there are some general tips, many of which have been discussed here in this conversation. But I would say be extraordinarily cautious about anything that seems too good to be true. any kind of a message you're receiving that seems to put you in a heightened state of stress. Hey, you're hearing from the IRS, someone's going to garnish your stimulus check. Something terrible is going to happen unless you act right away. Just slow the process down, call a loved one, call someone you trust before you make any decisions or click on any of those links. And one more thing I just will add that's more specific as opposed to general, but I did want to touch on just very briefly, and that is right now, if someone is a tenant, you cannot be evicted for a failure to pay your rent right now. That's due to a governor's proclamation. And my office has literally received more than 500 complaints from tenants across Washington state. So this is a huge problem. We have a whole team of attorneys and professional staff addressing each and every complaint, contacting landlords, contacting property management companies. Please write to my office if you feel you have an issue when it comes to paying the rent and staying in your home.
Thank you. Shannon, any general tips?
I would echo the general tip that Bob Ferguson gave, and that is if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Don't let somebody pressure you into making a purchase or making an investment or taking any kind of action until you're ready to do that. They're capitalizing on the fear and anxiety to try to get people to act quickly and try to get people to act without really thinking. And to echo a point that Doug made earlier, you initiate the calls. If you're interested in something, you make the call, you get the information, and don't believe all of the information that's coming at you.
Thank you. Doug, anything to add to that?
Just a couple things to reinforce from what the AG folks have said. First of all, I'm somewhat biased because I know someone who works from the AG's office who I'm married to, but we have one of the best AG's offices in the country, and I've dealt with a lot of them over the course of my career. If you have a complaint, you want information, it is worth your time to go to them and report a fraud, report this price gouging stuff, because they will respond. That's one point. The second point is just picking up on what Shannon said about investing. The other thing that's going on right now is not just a health crisis, but the stock market. I mean, there are folks in my category, retirees, who have lost 40% of their income from the stock market crash. And when that happens, you are more open to higher risk investments. So I would echo her advice about if somebody calls you with a great deal, yeah, it's true, but also be careful about what you even initiate yourself in that regard right now, because you're under a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of gold coin scams and strange binary investing things that come up because you're thinking, how am I going to recoup this money? I can't go back into the workforce and earn that money back. So just be very cautious about investing in general.
Thank you. So we're almost out of time for this Connect session, but I just wanted to go around one more time and see if there's anything that anyone would like to add that we haven't discussed so far. Let's go to Bob.
First, thanks again for hosting this conversation. The main thing I want to emphasize is on any of these issues or any others when it comes to consumer protection, contact my office if you have any issues at all. My team is there to help. Shannon leads a fantastic team. They'll respond to your complaint, and don't hesitate to pick up the phone or send us a message. We're happy to help. Thanks again for hosting this.
Great, thank you. Shannon, anything to add that we haven't discussed so far?
No, thank you.
Great, and Doug, anything more to add?
I don't think so. I just want to echo, we've had a great partnership with Bob all these years in the AG's office, with the governor's office, with TVW now, and this is just a fantastic opportunity for us to partner with you all. So I just want to thank you for all the time and commitment you've put into reaching our membership.
All right, well, thank you. I'd like to thank you all for joining us.
Thanks a lot, David. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Stay healthy, everybody.
That's all the time we have for this Teach with TVW Connects session. I want to thank our guests. I want to thank our partners, the Washington State COVID-19 Joint Information Center and AARP. For the next Teach with TVW Connects session, we will focus on combating loneliness and isolation in older adults during coronavirus. Our guests will be Dr. Tatiana Sadak, a professor of mental health nursing at the University of Washington, and Dr. Irwin Tan from AARP. If you would like to submit a question, please send it to teachwithtvw@tvw.org with the subject line, Spread the Facts. I'm David Johnson. Thank you for joining us, and stay safe.